But yes, welcome to our session on the new definition of a veteran. We have a very special guest here today who is instrumental in that legislation herself. So she is definitely knowledgeable about the topic of conversation. For those of you who have not been in this room, my name is Paul Cruz. I work for your Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm one of the program managers within our Veteran Services Division. I've been with the agency for 9 years. Prior to that, I spent 20 years in the United States military. So without further ado, we'll just kick it off and get right to it and start the conversation going.
Hello, I am Mariah Hanley. I am the manager of the Office of Military and Veteran Legal Assistance at the Attorney General's Office. And Paul is going to be handing out flyers about what the new definition of veteran is. But we will get into the real nitty-gritty of it throughout the presentation.
I'll take that.
All right, so there was going to be another person here today. He had a family emergency, so you were stuck with just me. All right, so I'm Mariah Hanley. I'm manager of the Office of Military and Veteran Legal Assistance. I'm immediately going behind the podium, sorry, because I can't see the presentation otherwise. So I have been working at the AG's office since December 2022. Prior to that, I was actually on the Office of Military and Veteran Legal Assistance Advisory Board since it began in 2017. So I've been working with this office for quite a while. Paul's also on our advisory board. He forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah.
So Paul's also been stuck with me for quite a while. Prior to that, I worked at Northwest Justice Project, doing veterans legal assistance, VA benefits work, and then I also worked for a little while at National Veterans Legal Services Program doing Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, appeals, VA benefits work. Graduated law school in 2016. I've been doing VA benefits work since my first year of law school, so about 10 years now. So I work for the Office of Military and Veteran Legal Assistance. We are a statewide provider of pro bono legal services to vets. We connect vets with pro bono legal assistance. We connect vets with legal services, so legal aid organizations statewide. And then we also connect vets with just legal information and resources about how to solve their problem on their own. We also provide trainings to attorneys and community, like this one that I'm doing now. We coordinate our pro bono attorney program. We have about 100 pro bono attorneys that work with us. And then we also develop and analyze policy proposals like the one I'm going to talk to you about today. So I'll talk a little bit more about kind of how to refer a vet to OVLA here in just a sec, but kind of the overview is that if somebody has a non-criminal legal issue, so things like housing, family law, wills and estates, those are kind of the big ones that we get the most. You can refer to us as long as they're below 500% of the federal poverty limit. So that's about, we just changed it, 12,500 for a family of 4. I just realized I put this for myself on the next slide, how much that actually is, so I'm just gonna not try to come up with that on my own. And then we attend events statewide. We're gonna be at the Skagit Stand Down in October. Yeah, Grace, yeah. And then we host legal clinics. We'll be doing a wills clinic in November at the Seattle VA. So if you have people that are in the Seattle area and need a will, feel free to connect with me. There will be info about how to connect. I've also got my flyers up here in the front if you want to grab them afterwards. All right, this is how you connect with us. It's the same issues on the flyers up here. One thing to be aware of, we are not for urgent issues. If you've got a vet that's being evicted tomorrow, please do not contact them. Please do not put them in contact with us. We cannot get them help immediately. We are not allowed to give legal advice. I'm not allowed to give a vet legal advice. I'm a lawyer, I can't give a vet legal advice though. So, we connect vets with pro bono attorneys, and that can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks if we can find a pro bono attorney. Unfortunately, we don't have enough pro bono attorneys to help everyone. There's just not enough pro bono attorneys to help we have 100 pro bono attorneys. We got 70 requests for assistance last month. So you can kind of see the math there. And not all of our pro bono attorneys take cases either. If you're working with a veteran facing eviction, this one is just sort of the one that is often the most urgent cases. The statewide eviction hotline is right there. If you're gonna write down anything for my presentation, I want you to write down that one number. Give them that number, have them call that, reach out. They will try to connect somebody with legal assistance. I'm not gonna put Caitlin on the spot or anything, but it's with Northwest Justice Project. She can answer questions about it, I'm sure. Yeah. All right, so the Office of Military and Veteran Legal Assistance was created by AGO request legislation, and so was the new definition of veteran that we'll be talking about today. So you're gonna hear me kind of say AGO request legislation a lot. What is that? So the AGO doesn't legislate. That is what the legislature does. We do, however, have a legislative team that works closely with members of the state legislature. We come up with policy proposals. So I came up with this policy proposal. Our consumer team comes up with them. Other members of our policy team come up with these proposals based on the work that we do. And then we go to the AG and we say, hey, we think that this is a good idea that you should propose to the legislature. AG Ferguson decides which ones he wants to put on his policy proposals, along with his legislative team, chief of staff, policy team, the different divisions, and then decides, and then goes to the different legislators and says, hey, we'd like these, would somebody like to sponsor it? So in spring 2023, we suggested a change to the definition of veteran. And it was one of the legislative proposals this year. So the other ones were prevailing wage sanctions. Don't ask me to explain that one. I don't understand it. Please don't ask me to explain that one. Artificial intelligence task force. We now have a task force for AI that is within my department, not my department, but within the policy team. Enhanced antitrust penalties, and then supervision of sexually violent predators. Last year, we had a whole bunch of other ones. Overall, most of them have gotten through. My bill, for example, our bill was unanimously approved by the legislature, which was exciting and shows the support of vets. We worked very closely with WDBA on this, so thank you to WDBA, especially Heidi and Steve and David. All right, our proposal. So, the proposal was sponsored by Senator Levick, and it was sponsored by Senator Levick, and then it was also sponsored by, oh God, Heidi.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot.
Oh God,
I'll
I know.
look it up.
Rep, oh God, I should not be.
I'm gonna find it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Levick, and then Rep Volts here in Spokane. There we go.
Oh, Volts, yes.
Rep Volts, yes. I could remember the other rep in Spokane. Yeah, Rep Volts here in Spokane. And it expanded the definition of veteran. So kind of thinking about like why? Why did we do this before we kind of go into what was the actual definition? So the definition expanded access to stabilizing benefits for BIPOC veterans, veterans from other minority populations, veterans with mental health conditions, veterans who experience military sexual harassment or assault, and then LGBTQIA vets. And then why else? Why else did we do this? And we'll talk about kind of what exactly we did here in just a sec, but why else? It simplified eligibility criteria. You'll see on the handout that you all got that it now kind of matches federal VA eligibility. So now if somebody's eligible for federal VA benefits, they're eligible for state VA benefits. It's just easier to understand. It restored honor to vets who were unjustly separated. So vets who were separated as a result of their sexual orientation, gender identity, they are now eligible for VA benefits regardless of their characterization of service. So somebody who is separated solely for being gay with a dishonorable, they're now eligible for state veterans benefits when they weren't previously eligible for state veterans benefits. And it'll affect approximately 35,000 veterans across the state of Washington. All right, so the changes in the law. It aligns state veterans benefits eligibility with federal veterans benefits eligibility. So if somebody is eligible for or receiving VA disability compensation or non-service connected pension, they're now eligible for state veterans benefits. So if somebody is getting, has a rating from the VA, they're getting non-service connected pension, they're gonna be eligible for state veterans benefits. It's easy to understand there. And then, even if they're not getting a rating even if they have a dishonorable, if somebody was separated solely because of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, they're also eligible. So we addressed this gigantic inequity caused by Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and prior and similar policies that have really been going on since World War II that occurred. I see a question in the back there, yeah.
Yes, ma'am, sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to.
Oh, no, go for it.
Sorry about that. On their DD 214, does it have to have the misconduct code for gender or for sexual orientation, like if they were LGBTQ member and they were separated for that? Or is their DD 214, if it says they were dishonorably discharged, but it gives like misconduct, does that qualify as well?
That one is one that's going to be, I think, kind of challenging, and one that I hate to say, you guys are probably going to have to work with your county attorneys to sort of figure out what exactly eligibility you have to determine for your own counties. I think you could look at, if somebody says, I was separated for my gender, but their DD 214 says misconduct, maybe their separation paperwork that they have besides their DD 214 may include other information. I'm going to point to Robin, who might also have other ideas about this.
No, that's it, that's stuff that needs to be worked out.
Yeah, okay, Robin's saying that's stuff that needs to be worked out, so, yeah. Yeah.
I just want to clarify. Okay, so they're not going to be required to do a discharge upgrade?
No,
Oh.
State law. It's not federal.
But not doing a discharge upgrade, so it may align with the VA saying you can apply for benefits. But being able to apply for benefits is not the same thing as having your DD 214 upgraded.
Okay.
correct.
But you
Correct.
can use the state, if you can get something from the state that says, hey, we have deemed you eligible, you can use that as a piece of evidence for the discharge upgrade.
Correct. Yeah, it's not gonna change any federal eligibility, it'll just be eligibility for state benefits. But if somebody wants federal eligibility for benefits, if somebody wants pretty much anything else, they probably still need to apply for a discharge upgrade, but they don't have to get state eligibility. All right, so I actually did have who it is sponsored by in here, so. So it passed unanimously in both houses. We worked with WDVA and the Veterans Legislative Coalition on the bill. That is WDVA, our team, and members of the Vets Legislative Coalition with Governor Inslee on the signing. So this is a thing I had to put in here due to our team. Nothing I say about the bill today changes or how to determine eligibility is legal advice. Talk to your agency's assigned AAG if you're a state agency, or your city or county attorney. Don't take what I say as legal advice, please. All right, so when we're talking about federal eligibility, I'm saying it matches federal eligibility. All right, so what is federal eligibility? All right, so when you're talking about who is a veteran, we often kind of talk about, who is a veteran. It can be social status. So some people are going to say a veteran is anyone who served. A veteran is somebody who's currently serving. A veteran is somebody who just has an honorable. A lot of the time, those are social status. That is what you think of as a veteran. But then when we're talking about, who is a veteran for the purposes of VA benefits, we're talking about statutory status. And that is who determines who is eligible for VA benefits. And that is talking about eligibility. So statutory veteran status is this qualifying active service and non-disqualifying discharge. So veteran, under federal definition, is a person who served in the active military, naval, air, or space service, and who is discharged or released under conditions other than dishonorable. So that first part there is the qualifying active service. That first bolded part is qualifying active service. And that second part is the second part of the equation there, non-disqualifying discharge. And that is the federal definition of veteran. So qualifying active service means you have to have served in one of the armed forces, you have to have served in a qualifying component, and for many benefits, you have to have served for a period of time, a duration. So armed force, I'm not gonna go over those, you all know who they are, that includes Space Force now. Component, active duty, VA benefits for any injury on active duty unless due to willful misconduct. Activated federal service. So this has to be activated federal service for VA benefits, not state level service. So if you were activated on State National Guard to go fight a forest fire, for example, that is not going to be activated federal service for federal VA benefits. active duty for training and inactive duty for training. Active duty for training will qualify. Inactive duty for training will sometimes qualify for VA benefits for federal status. Duration. So duration, sometimes there are duration requirements for VA benefits. For disability compensation, doesn't matter how long you served. If you broke your leg your first day in boot camp, you can get disability compensation for that. For non-service connected pension, however, you have to have served during a wartime period, and those are defined within federal statute. We've been in a wartime period since late 90s, I believe. And you have to have served either 24 months or your full term of service. But this only applies to vets with active service after September 8th, 1980. Before that, laws changed, or laws are different. So non-disqualifying discharge. So this will be important to sort of look at when we're talking about our new changed veteran definition. Characterization of service is honorable, general, under honorable, other than honorable, bad conduct. Those are characterizations of service. A lot of vets call them their discharge. Their discharge is technically two things, but a lot of vets are just going to call their characterization of service their discharge. And then reason for discharge. This is particularly important when we're going to be talking about vets who are separated due to their gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation. So, characterizations of service. There are 6 characterizations of service. Prior to the change, most of the state benefits were only honorable. Vets with an honorable were allowed access to VA benefits. After that, now it's pretty much everybody, unless it's bad conduct discharge or dishonorable, unless they're LGBTQ plus or gender identity or gender expression. But prior to 6/6/24, it was really only honorable for most benefits. For federal benefits, it is honorable and general under honorable are eligible for most benefits, except for people with a general under honorable are not assumed to be eligible, or assumed to be eligible for everything except for GI Bill. For other than honorable, they are not assumed to be eligible. They have to ask for access to benefits and have to go through a VA administrative process. Bad conduct discharge, probably not eligible, and they're not going to be eligible unless they were separated due to their gender orientation, sexual orientation, gender expression. And dishonorable, they're not eligible for federal benefits. They would only be eligible due to LGBTQ for us. All right, reasons for discharge. These are just some examples of reasons for discharge that somebody may have received. And for our purposes, there is also going to be homosexuality or reasons like that you may be looking for. All right, couple more reasons about why we did this. When we were talking to legislators, we kind of wanted to really let them know, why was this important for the state of Washington to do? First of all, several states have already expanded their definition of veteran to either match the federal definition or expand access to benefits for LGBTQ plus veterans. So for example, some of our statute matched the Colorado definition of veterans, some of it matched Pennsylvania. We sort of used both of those and cobbled them together to make it a definition that worked for Washington. 36 states use a broader definition of veteran than Washington for the purpose of providing at least one benefit. The approximately 0.86% of veterans nationwide have both an other than honorable and are eligible for VA benefits. So when we're looking at the fiscal impact for veterans with an other than honorable on counties, for example, the fiscal impact is going to be really minimal. It's less than 1% of veterans nationwide, so probably also statewide, that are going to be eligible for VA benefits and that have an other than honorable. So only the veterans who have an other than honorable and are eligible for state benefits are going to be eligible for, and eligible for federal benefits are going to be eligible for state benefits. So the concern, that came up was, are we going to be forced to give access to all of these other honorable vets? This is going to really, have a huge fiscal impact, but really it's going to be less than 1% of vets, and these are vets that have already gone through a very, rigorous review process by the the federal VA or have gotten a discharge upgrade, and it's really less than 1% of vets. And then veterans with a general under honorable characterizations of service are automatically eligible for VA disability compensation, non-service connected pension, but they weren't eligible for a lot of the state benefits. So this caused some, confusion among veterans, family members, service providers. So now it just simplifies that. But then we also really wanted to focus on the equity arguments here. So when we were looking at this, we were really looking at, for example, Black veterans. There's a ton of equity issues when you're looking at, Black veterans in particular. So Black veterans make up nearly 18% of separations total, but they don't have a similar number of honorable discharges. Only 16.5% of honorable discharges are Black veterans. They were approximately 1.5 times as likely to receive an other than honorable discharge and twice as likely to receive a general discharge. So they were less likely to be eligible for state benefits prior to this change. In the Navy, they were actually 2.3 times as likely to receive an other than honorable discharge. So they were Black Navy veterans were even more likely to be ineligible for state veterans benefits. In the Air Force, 2.5 times as likely to receive a general discharge. Again, Black airmen were even less likely to be eligible for state veterans benefits. Veterans with mental health conditions were another where they were going to be less likely to be eligible for state veterans benefits due to inequity in discharges. So 16% of service members separated for misconduct had either been diagnosed with PTSD or traumatic brain injury during the 2 years prior to separation. A lot of the time, there's been studies done that show that PTSD, traumatic brain injury are often, reasons that end up causing somebody to do something that gets them discharged for, with an other than honorable. Like it is, maybe they had a bad UA, for example. Yeah, you know what, they shouldn't have had a bad UA. That is a screw up that they did. However, if they were self-medicating due to PTSD that wasn't treated, then that is, something that probably should have been addressed. Veterans who experienced sexual assault and harassment were also 1.5 times as likely to receive a less than honorable characterization of service. So vets with MST, they were less likely to be able to access state veterans benefits. Marines who deployed to Iraq were 11 times more likely to be discharged for misconduct and 8 times more likely to be discharged for substance abuse than Marines without a PTSD diagnosis. Like over and over and over again, the statistics showed that vets with mental health conditions were more likely to be ineligible for state benefits because they were more likely to be discharged with misconduct. Misconduct discharges are more likely to be other than honorable, general under honorable bad conduct.
We have a question.
Yeah, thanks. So for the first, third, and fourth bullets, you're talking about medical diagnosis, so that's easily verifiable. But for the second bullet, you mentioned veterans who experience sexual assault and harassment. So what is the objective basis that you use to come to that conclusion? I mean, or is it simply that the veteran says, I experienced sexual assault, I experienced harassment? Thank you.
Yeah, so this was a study that we are citing too, and these were, individuals that reported their sexual assault and harassment, and it's the same, situation as, any other reports of sexual assault and harassment. Maybe they went to their command, maybe they made a confidential report. I think it, really comes down to believing survivors there. All right, LGBTQ veterans. So between the end of World War II and the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, approximately 114,000 service members were voluntarily separated based on sexual orientation. And not all of these service members were separated with a less than honorable characterization of service, but also the military didn't do a great job of keeping track of who actually was separated with a less than honorable characterization of service. We don't have great data about issues during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or about characterizations of service. Well, you might all have seen like news articles over the last couple of years about how the VA is like doing a bunch of stuff, or DoD is doing a bunch of stuff to try to address this. There's not a great federal solution in place yet to address the decades and decades of harm brought about by these policies. So Washington needed to do something to make sure that these vets were taken care of in the meantime while the federal government addressed these issues. VA is working on it, DoD is working on it, but at the moment there's just not a full-scale solution to address it. So we do have some data though that was kind of cobbled together by a bunch of different studies that during the Don't Ask, Don't Tell era, 7% of discharges given by the Navy for homosexuality and 9.5% of discharges given by the Marines were other than honorable. So, 7 to 9.5% of vets from those branches were not going to be eligible for VA benefits, for state veterans benefits here in Washington just because of their sexual orientation. Veterans separated could receive any discharge up to a dishonorable. So we needed to go farther into our solution. We couldn't just say that somebody eligible for state benefit, with an other than honorable would be eligible. We needed to go all the way to dishonorable because vets could have gotten a dishonorable just for their sexual orientation. All right, so I'm not gonna go over every single one of these statutes. You should all be very excited to know that I will not go over every single one of them. No. Big no. You can definitely volunteer to if you'd like to though.
It does look like big
I did, however, edit all of them. So that was a fun period of my life back in December. I think Heidi probably also read it several times, several dozens of times.
Good fun, Mariah.
Yeah, super fun period of our life. So we added new sections that actually added the definitions, but you all recognize some of these statutes, and probably some of them you're all gonna be like, I have no idea what some of these statutes are. That is fair. I also didn't know what some of these statutes were. All right. Prior to June 6th, two statutes had definitions of vet. RCW 41.04.005, which was veteran includes every person who received an honorable discharge, is actively serving honorably, or received a discharge for physical reasons with an honorable record, and 41.04.007. Veteran includes every person who at the time of seeking certain benefits has received an honorable discharge or received a discharge for medical reasons with an honorable record where applicable, or is in receipt of a United States Department of Defense discharge document DD Form 214, NGB Form 22, or their equivalent or successor discharge paperwork that characterizes his or her service as honorable. I don't know about you all, but I had a hard time figuring out often what that meant when I was looking at who's eligible for what. And a lot of this makes sense, but sometimes I wasn't sure if my vet was eligible for something or not. Both included, and they still do, we didn't take out large portions of those statutes. Most of them were not changed. Additional requirements like wartime service, a campaign or expeditionary badge, or medal. So all we did was take out those sort of sections about who is the actual, what the actual definition is, and replaced it with this idea about what is a qualifying discharge. So now we added a new section under RCW 73.04.005, and it is defined as a qualifying discharge. So now we define it as an honorable or general under honorable characterization of service. So like the federal VA, they're just automatically assumed to be qualifying. And other than honorable, if the person provides documentation of receipt of or eligibility for disability compensation, non-service connected pension, or other monetary benefits from the federal VA, and any characterization of service, including bad conduct discharge and dishonorable, if the reason for discharge was due to their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or statements, disclosures, consensual sexual conduct, or consensual acts relating to their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, unless those statements, conducts, or acts were prohibited by the UCMJ on other grounds. So for example, somebody who was separated because they were gay, but it was actually for fraternization, for example, they're not going to be eligible for benefits. But if it was only because they were gay, they're going to be eligible. All right, so
That's technical.
Yeah, it is.
yes,
Flight.
it was yes.
We have a question.
No.
Yes.
Not so much a question, but I was just thinking of going back to, oh, you want me to stand up?
Oh, no.
Okay, sorry. I am a lot taller if I stand up. Not really. But I was just thinking on that last slide, there's been a lot of conversation about how do you determine whether or not a veteran has PTSD or experienced military sexual trauma. And I think that idea that if they are receiving those federal benefits, you don't have to make that determination at the state level anymore. So I think that's a lot of people were kind of talking about, how do I figure that out? That's sort of the easy part of the answer. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that because that was something that stuck out to me as I heard the questions.
Yep. Thanks, Caitlin. All right, so when you are looking at, and it's pretty easy to determine whether or not somebody has a qualifying discharge if they have an honorable or general under honorable, you're going to look at their DD-214, NGB-22, or their discharge document. For most of you, I have the feeling you've already done this. If you work for your county, Veteran Service Office, if you work for an agency that has to determine eligibility, you probably are already familiar with looking at a DD-214 and figuring out if they're eligible with honorable. It's just going to be looking for a general under honorable as well. If you could also possibly look at their veterans benefits and service verification letter from the federal VA, as long as it includes a characterization of service. So here's an example of a DD-214. You'll see here it says honorable on it. If somebody has a general under honorable, that's all you need to look at for honorable or general under honorable. Easy, super fast to determine eligibility. There. I pointed to it. All right. It gets more complicated if you're looking for vets with an other than honorable. However, you might need to look at more than one document. So, characterization of service, you're going to be able to go look at this, DD-214 again. It's going to say other than honorable. And that same, box there, it's going to say other than honorable. But you're going to need to look at this. Are they eligible for or receiving VA benefits? So there's going to be a lot of ways that a vet can show that. They may be able to show a benefit summary from the VA, a narrative rating decision, a rating decision from the VA, documents from their VBMS file. That's kind of unlikely unless a vet has managed to get them from their VSO or from an attorney. Yeah. Could be a letter from SSA about receipt of benefits from the VA, something that shows that they are either eligible for, they don't have to necessarily be receiving the benefits. If they can show that they're eligible for benefits from the VA, if they've received them previously, they have a letter that shows that yes, you have received a discharge upgrade, for example, to, VA character of service determination to be eligible for VA benefits. If you can show that you are eligible for VA benefits, even if you're not receiving, that is within the definition of a qualifying discharge, if they're eligible for or receipt of VA benefits. If they can show that they are receiving VA benefits through any rating decision, et cetera, that will also show eligibility. So anything that shows receipt or eligibility is going to be able to prove that they have this qualifying discharge for vets with an other than honorable. I heard that there might be questions about this, so I'm going to leave it open for questions for a sec. Here, I heard the counties may be wondering about what this means. Yes? No? No? Okay. All right, proving a qualifying discharge for LGBTQ vets. So again, you might need to look at more than one document here. So characterization service, again, it's going to be the same documents. It's going to be this DD-214. It's going to be an NGB-22. But reason for separation, a lot of times that's going to be on discharge documents. If there's a question though, you might need more documents. You might need to look at separation documents prior to their DD-214. You might need to look at memos from their commander. What you almost certainly need to do if there's a question is talk to your lawyer. Talk to your county attorney. if they don't know, you might need to, you may need to kind of do more work there. You might need to ask the vet to say, you know, you're saying that you have a dishonorable, it says misconduct, you're saying that you were separated for, you know, homosexuality. We're gonna need something to show that what you're telling us there, like, and you might even say, like, we believe you, but for our, you know, records, we need something to show that. You could, you know, if that's what you want to say, you could say that. This isn't legal advice, but you know, if you want to really sort of make a vet feel heard and also get those records that you almost certainly need, you know, without having to do a ton of work yourself, you can probably say, like, hey, we're going to need something to show this. So this is going to be this narrative reason for separation. You know, a lot of the time, it might not say that. You know, I was talking, you know, people yesterday, and they were saying, like, hey, you know, a lot of the time it's going to say, like, you know, failure to adapt, for example. Like, it's going to say, it's just not going to say, you know, it's not going to say it's not going to say homosexual conduct. Like, this was one of the only DD-14s that I found, having worked with vets for many, many years, that actually said this. So you may have you know, it might be that vets have to provide other information. This is, again, one of those times where you may need to go talk to your county attorneys. They may need to become familiar with vets benefits, which they will love. They will love to hear that they need to become familiar with VA stuff.
So just, I don't know if this would be asking for legal advice or not, but so I know that for the VA, sometimes if, let's say for a disability application, if it's not in the medical record, sometimes they can get narratives from other people to say, no, I was there when they fell off the ladder, kind of a thing. Would a narrative from other service members who served with these people, would those suffice to say, no, like, I know for a fact that this is what happened because it was a big deal and they didn't put it on the DD-214, but my, you know, like, let's say in the Navy, like, my shipmates know that this is why this happened. Would narratives like that help?
I think that is completely up to your particular sort of program about whether or not that will work for your program.
I'm currently helping a veteran with a discharge upgrade. I work at the VA hospital, by the way. And so he actually applied for a discharge upgrade. He said it was due to homosexual conduct, but his discharge actually said misconduct, right? That's what his narrative was. So when we applied for, the Navy actually sent him a letter back saying, hey, we've received your discharge upgrade request. However, we are gonna need some information from you as well, right? And so he actually did what you're talking about, ma'am. He actually went and got statements from people that he was in the service with in the Navy. He wrote his story out, which was very hard for him, considering he has, in the last 22 years, been told no every time he's approached the federal VA for help with his MST care and things of that nature. So this was a big deal for him. So yes, it is something that you can definitely, I told him to put everything, right? Whatever he wants to include, whatever will help the Naval Board make their decision to help upgrade his discharge, put it in there. We are still waiting to hear back. They said it could take 6 to 8 months for him to have a final decision, but we're very hopeful that his stuff will be upgraded.
Okay, so are you saying if I send your video to my attorney in Skagit County and just train because we have a contract with Community Action to give direct services, and that was one of the questions they came to me about because of the new law, and we updated our policies and procedures based on the changes. So if we decide to say, hey, you know, if someone comes up and says, hey, Chris, I was in the Navy, it was either something like this discharge narrative, or it was like, say they had something against me because of my skin color, whatever, right, or race or gender identities, whatever. Do we have to worry about the state coming down and like auditing that and saying, hey, we helped them out with like the gas and the new water heater and all this stuff from the Veterans Assistance Fund is what I'm. Does that make sense?
I am so throwing this one to Steve.
You see what I'm saying?
This is so
Like,
not,
how is
I'm
the
not
county
answering this one.
protected because of that? Because I want to give a lot of money out.
Steve Gill, Washington Department of Veterans Affairs. I should say WDVA, we're not a regulatory agency, right? So we're not going to be in your business. We're not going to be telling you you did the wrong thing or you didn't do it right, that type of thing. That's not our role. Someone might question it, the state auditor's office might, question, was this person eligible for this use of public resources? That's probably about as far as it's going to go, and the only way it's going to be questioned is, was this public dollars, was this tax dollars spent appropriately? That's what it boils down to. So no one's really, there is no other entity that's, reviewing your eligibility criteria. It's just a matter of, whether those public tax dollars were spent wisely and accounted for properly.
Did that answer that?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're on my path.
All right, so what benefits does this affect? A lot of them, so many of them. There's a list on the handout you all got to. But tuition waivers, this affects in-state resident status for higher education, property tax exemptions, down payment assistance, not the federal veterans down payment assistance. Did you all know that we have a state down payment assistance program for vets?
No.
We do. It doesn't have very many people that use it, so we have it. Hunting and fishing passes, and a lot of these have additional eligibility requirements that were not affected by the law. Hiring preference, disabled American veteran or POW license plates, that has a delay on it because of some changes to the DOL or DMV systems. Veteran designation on driver's license, ID card, protection under Washington law on discrimination, that definition has changed now as well. Assistance from county veterans assistance funds, I assume you guys are all familiar with that one, and more, many, many more. All right, and well, we are really early, so sorry all. But yeah, what questions do you have?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, I work in higher ed, so the first two pertain to me
Yes.
frequently. Tuition waivers, just for the gentleman over here, we got audited by the state. They randomly picked like 8 of our students who wanted waivers, and we sent all the paperwork up to the auditor, and everything seemed fine. So we had documentation, we had memorandums, we had letters from our financial aid office. So anyway, it looks good and it has official letterhead, it seems to be fine. Just to say that. But in-state resident status, so there's a lot of RCWs out there about residency. I know that's not the subject here, but that's always an issue with us about domicile. I don't know about how the counties work. We're on a state border here, so there's some issues about residency. We have veterans who may rent a house out in Washington and live in Idaho, and so I just bring that up as a challenge for us. And no comment necessary. And the last comment I want to make, is there any discussion at the state level around Washington National Guard service members who may never have served on active duty to be eligible for some state benefits? Because that affects us with the waiver, because the way we read the waiver is we can't give them tuition waivers unless they've been federalized. But we have a lot of guardsmen and women who serve their 8-year enlistment and never get called up, come to school, and we say, we're sorry, we can't give you the tuition waiver. So is there any discussion about our guards service members?
I don't know about that one. Steve, do you know anything about that?
Gonna delegate this one to Heidi.
We have it on file.
Smart man.
Hey everybody, I'm Heidi Audet. I'm the Communications and Legislative Director at your WDVA. And when Mariah was talking about that 4104-005 or 007 definition, that definition does capture National Guard members. So as long as a National Guard member has completed their initial military service obligation, then they are considered veterans in the state of Washington.
Oh, cool.
I would question that.
Okay.
Because I think there's a caveat in the RCW that talks about they need to have served on Title 10 or Title 32 orders for the tuition waiver RCW.
Okay, well, that might be combining those two, so yeah, we can certainly look at that though, Dave. That might be something we can
I know we're not talking about tuition waivers here, but RCW got waivers.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Thanks, Steve.
Never gonna sit next to me again.
Hey, just a quick question. I think a prior slide indicated that may have been something like 36 states had already revised their legislation to really take in those characterizations of service that were given during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So I'm just curious, if, to the extent that you know, why is Washington State so late getting on board with this?
So 36 states actually just use a broader definition. Many of them have not actually revised it. They just originally had a broader definition. A lot of states just use the federal definition. That was their original definition. So
they just incorporate the federal definition, so then kind of when it automatically changed, or?
No, they just use like the federal this definition. They just used that as their state definition automatically. So they just had a broader definition by default than we did. But we were not one of the first. We're kind of in the middle with states that started making those changes, and I can't answer why we weren't one of the first states. I don't know, but we've got it done now, so that's great. But yeah, I don't know. It was one of the first things I did after I got into the office because I harassed a lot of people about it real fast. So, but yeah, I don't know. We should have gotten it done earlier, I would say. That's my personal opinion.
Any other questions? No? That's how good of a job you did. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate the conversation. Heidi, next time will be on every one of my sessions, so I can just punt it to you. That was awesome. If you could go to the last slide, please. We actually have a QR code for our surveys. If you could please ensure that you fill those out, because that really gives us a good idea of what to present for next year. It helps us develop our talking points and what we would like to do for different panels. Did you have something there?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And hello, everybody. My name is Gary Lott. I also work with Washington Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm not just a photographer, though. Also, one of my primary functions will be working with the definition of a veteran program, getting out that engagement, that outreach, working with our Veteran Training Support Center as well for the education purposes. And we're kind of doing a little bit of homework for you as well, too, as we've handed out these one-pagers here. We want everything to make sense for you as well too. As we kind of get that wealth of information, we've seen all the slides as well too. What information is missing on here? What ways can we have this document or other literature make more sense? Looking at also the governor's directive of plain talk, wanting to make sure that our documents are plain talked as well too, so that it makes sense. And so we figure this is kind of that first draft version of the flyer, if you will. And so we would love to have kind of any changes you might have, any suggestions that you might have. Maybe we should be including the original definition of a veteran on there. So we've got a note on there as well too. And so maybe before we head out, since we have some extra time, might be a good opportunity to look over the document as well and send in any suggested changes that you might have. Some things you'd like to see on there, as well as sharing with us opportunities that we can get out, outreach this program as well to either your organizations, nonprofits, state agencies, and more. And so I just wanted to also introduce myself, let you know that this is something that we'll be working together as well too. And we definitely need your feedback, because you're out there working with the veterans, you're out there connecting with the veterans as well too, as you're going through kind of those case-by-case basis. What are some hurdles that you might be facing? What are some success measures that you might be seeing? And we want to be able to tell the story. At the end of the day, to have a veteran that served and then had their state benefits taken away because legislation, for lack of better terms, that sucks, And so I'm glad that our state and definitely Mariah. And we've got a ton of state agencies and stakeholders and partners that are willing to assist as well, and are really getting behind this as we update our trifolds, our brochures across the board. We always want to make sure that we're providing that good feedback from you as well too. So maybe take the opportunity to let us know where we can maybe do some education with you all, where we can visit your locations or provide some of that training for some conferences or upcoming workshops that you might have, as well as how can we make sure that this document makes the most sense, or how we can add to it and maybe have a one pager, but also maybe like a trifold brochure or something that has a little bit more information that includes some of the amazing information that we saw here on the slide deck. And yes, the slide deck will be available too, as well as all the videos as well. So you'll be able to get all that great information. But as we said, even if you can take a moment or two now and just look over the document and send that and submit that, that'd be a great help for us as well. And we'll be looking forward to as many opportunities, that list of 35,000, getting that down to 0. Thank you for the time.
Also, my envelope brochure is up here if anybody needs that. Please feel free to take copies.
Hi, I'm Peter Lamont. I'm the apprenticeship specialist for the department. There was a lot of talk here about education and veteran status. I will say on the apprenticeship side in the state, we're a little bit more flexible about discharge. Pretty much if you come to me in my old job, if you have a discharge, we do accept dishonorable. We do consider you veterans. You were in, you did your time, and we're gonna try and give you another pathway out. Another thing on the funding, the big apprenticeships, we don't take your money. You're eligible for your GI Bill. We don't take your money, it's your money. You can use it for basic housing allowance, and when you're accepted into our programs, we pay. And you don't. So think about apprenticeship as an alternative. Thank you.